Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. One of the biggest storylines, really across college football heading into this spring practice window is this Alabama quarterback battle, and why I think it's a real national storyline and not just a storyline amongst Alabama fans. You make no mistake about it. If you get elite quarterback play from Alabama in the 2025 year, this is a team that can compete for national championship. Now, the question is, who is going to be the quarterback one? And I think it's probably the most fascinating quarterback battle that you see heading into spring ball, because you poll the Alabama fans, you log on Twitter, you log on the message boards. The Alabama fans are pretty split in terms of who they think is going to win this job going into 2025. Now, to me, it sounds like Ty Simpson is probably the leader in the clubhouse, also probably the most popular pick amongst Alabama fans. But I'm very intrigued in terms of what Keelon Russell can bring to the table in this quarterback battle as well. Y'all see, I'm a Michigan fan, and so I'll ride with Bryce Underwood. But I'll say this: Bryce Underwood, Keelon Russell, they ain't much difference. Both of those quarterbacks were they're both some of the more impressive quarterbacks that I've seen come out of high school in a very long time. And if Keelon Russell can be ahead of schedule and kind of show that he can play SEC ball as a freshman, he's going to be a guy that is competing for the starting job. And then Austin Mack, I have some takes on him as well. I remember covering him when he committed to Washington out of high school. I want to get into the overarching kind of landscape of this quarterback battle. And then I want to get into each player and just talk about some pros and cons that they all bring to the table for Alabama. Now, before we get into it, as always, I think most importantly to the Alabama fans, let it fly in the comment section. This is going to be a storyline that we're talking a lot about over the next couple of weeks and months. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. I actually want to start with kind of my take on what this quarterback battle looks like. And I'll start with this. As a Michigan fan, again, go back 12 months ago, as a Michigan fan, we had a quarterback battle too going into 2024. Now, this quarterback battle between the Michigan quarterbacks and what we're seeing between Alabama going into 2025 is completely different. Now, you look at Alabama, you got two five-star quarterbacks, Ty Simpson and Keelon Russell. You also have a top 100 prospect in Austin Mack, who was handpicked by Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb out of high school to go to Washington. And Michigan had Davis Warren and Alex Orji battling it out. Alabama's got a lot of good options, and there's a lot of names that could be really good football players for Alabama in 2025 versus Michigan. We tried to talk ourselves in to having good quarterback play in 2024, but I think we all knew that probably wasn't going to happen. I think the second storyline is, look, Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb, that duo reunited in Tuscaloosa. To me, that's the most powerful duo in all of college football on the offensive side of the football. What they've done historically together, not only developing offenses, but getting the best out of quarterbacks, it's probably the most impressive track record that you see in the sport. And so now you have Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb working with three quarterbacks that are all very, very talented. If you're an Alabama fan, it doesn't even matter who the quarterback is. You feel like whoever wins this job coming out of spring and fall camp, probably going to be pretty dang good quarterback play for Alabama in 2025. Now, let's get into Ty Simpson first. The number one thing I want to talk about with Ty Simpson is he is a far better athlete than I think people assume he is. Now, he ain't no Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe is kind of a different level of cat. This was a guy that ran for over 1,200 yards during his senior year of high school. And he's probably the most polished and probably the most ready as we speak right now in terms of these Alabama quarterbacks. The thing that I'd be most excited about with Ty Simpson running this Alabama offense is you're going to have a little bit more of that intermediate passing attack, especially over the middle of the field. That was something we were kind of hoping you would see a step from Jalen Milroe from that 2023 to 2024. You didn't really see that step. That passing attack continued to kind of just be a boom or bust. Hey, we're either going to push the ball down the field and hit explosive plays, or we ain't going to have a ton of success throwing the football through the air. Ty Simpson brings you a little bit more balance in terms of the kind of throws that he can bring to the table. And he's a guy that even coming out of high school was a really good processor, especially over the middle of the field. I think there's a lot more upside than people realize with Ty Simpson. Like, again, Keelon Russell probably offers more upside, and we're going to get into him in a little bit. But the upside that Ty Simpson brings, there was a reason he was a five-star prospect coming out of high school. You don't get 5 stars next to your name if you don't have some serious arm talent in terms of access in every portion of the football field. Keelon Russell, the pros to me are so obvious. This kid, he has one of the highest upsides in terms of all quarterbacks in the country, in my opinion, going into 2025 as a true freshman. Dynamic athlete, can extend plays, get outside the pocket, hurt you with his legs, but he also can throw off platform extremely well. Throws a very, very good deep ball, similar to how Jalen Milroe could throw the deep ball as well. Keelon Russell's a different kind of freshman quarterback, at least in my opinion. One, he's one of the most gifted quarterbacks that I've seen come out of high school and a little bit. And then number two is a guy that's played a lot of football at a very high level. I mean, 2 state championships out of 3 seasons. They're playing at Duncanville 6A football in the state of Texas. This is not a guy that is playing in New York where the comp, you ain't seeing a single Division I football player all year. I mean, he was on a football field in the state of Texas for the last 3 years that was loaded with Power 4 talent, and he absolutely dominated. I mean, you take a look at the numbers, 7,400 yards in the last 2 years, 71% completion percentage, 90 touchdowns to only 12 interceptions, elite completion percentage, elite touchdown to interception ratio, and then the film checks out too. This is a guy that can make all the throws that you're going to ask him to make. The pros are obvious for Keelon Russell. It's the highest upside in this quarterback room that Alabama has. Now the cons here are he's a freshman quarterback, and we're not really sure if it's going to translate immediately. Now, I can completely understand the Alabama fans who are like, hey, Ty Simpson has been marinating in the college football world for the last couple of years. He's ready to take over the reins. But I can also see the Alabama fans who are like, hey, wouldn't mind if we see Keelon Russell get to go as a true freshman, because that gives us an upside that not the other quarterbacks in this room probably can't offer. I'll say this. If Keelon Russell does, in fact, win the job coming out of fall camp, he's a game because he's beaten out 2 quarterbacks that are good. Ty Simpson, Austin Mack, we like those quarterbacks. And if Keelon Russell beats both of those out, he's ready to rock and roll in the SEC in 2025. Austin Mack, he's probably the third quarterback for me. My thing with Austin Mack is a lot of people are saying, well, he was handpicked by Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb, which is true, right? They recruited him to Washington. Then they brought him over to Alabama when the coaching staff moved over. Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb like Austin Mack. The thing I see with Austin Mack is he doesn't offer that super high upside that I think Keelon Russell does. And why I say that is I don't think he's nearly the athlete that he's certainly not the athlete Keelon Russell is. And I don't think he's the athlete that Ty Simpson is too. And so you talk about having a difference maker in the backfield, a guy that can extend plays and be a little bit of that dual threat guy that makes defenses account for a lot of different things. I don't think Austin Mack's that guy, especially with some, potential concerns you have on the offensive line. You might want to lean to a quarterback that can get himself out of trouble a little bit. Austin Mack, I mean, I've heard he's pushing 6'8". I mean, 6'7" for sure, 6'8". And he certainly looks it too when you look at him. He's solid. I mean, from a pure pocket passer. I mean, he's got a big body, a big arm. He can make a lot of throws. And again, I'm not an anti-Austin Mack guy. It just has a little bit more to do with how I look at a guy like Keelon Russell and Ty Simpson. The struggle that I think Austin Mack will probably run into in terms of getting on the field is I don't think he offers the high upside that Keelon Russell does, and he doesn't have the experience that Ty Simpson does. And so when you don't have the polish and experience and you don't bring the high upside too, now it gets kind of hard. You really got to win this job going into spring practice and fall camp. I'm not ruling it out. If I were to kind of rank my picks right now, I'd probably start with Ty Simpson as the leader in the clubhouse. I'm putting Keelon Russell significantly higher than most Alabama fans are. And I get it. I'm not trying to be that guy who just gets up here and says, bangs the table to start freshman quarterbacks. I will say this. Over the last decade, you look at the freshman quarterbacks that have had success playing year one, they all have one thing in common. They were good athletes, and they can get themselves out of trouble. And when you have that athleticism, you raise your floor because you can get yourself out of trouble. Keelon Russell's that guy. And so I put Keelon Russell much closer to Ty Simpson than I think a lot of people across the country would. And then I slot Austin Mack number 3. overarching takes is, look, you don't know who the quarterback's going to be. That doesn't mean it's going to be bad quarterback play. Again, the difference between where Alabama's and my Michigan Wolverines were 12 months ago is we didn't know who the quarterback was going to be for Michigan last year at this time, but we also didn't have a lot of confidence in any of them. Alabama, you probably have confidence in all three of these guys going into spring and fall camp, and you have confidence in Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb to put together a good offense and put together good quarterback play. So it's a good combination that Alabama has. And I'm telling you, if this team gets elite quarterback play, they get quarterback play that better fits what Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb want to do on offense. It's going to mean the world for Alabama in 2025. We'll see how it plays out. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Going to be a really fun storyline to track over the next couple of weeks and months. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later.